Alrighty, new movie came out in theaters this past weekend. The biggest blockbuster of this past weekend was Transformers: Rise of the Beasts, and I went to go see it. Now let's talk about it. So, Transformers is a very up and down franchise for me. I remember watching them all, and I remember being very, they alright movies. I've been rewatching them recently, and I rewatched 1 and 2, and after rewatching those two, I'm like, there's two franchises I would love to see crossover with Transformers. That is Fast and Furious. And then I'm like, oh, Universal, Paramount, that's going to be a little difficult. But then I remembered, ooh, it'd be cool if they crossed over with G.I. Joe. And then I'm like, just imagine like someone like Snake Eyes, like Megatron just misses a punch. Snake Eyes jumps on his arm, takes out the katana sword and slashes it up. I don't know, it's real action figure stuff, okay? That's what I'm talking about. But Transformers Rise of the Beasts was quite entertaining. It was genuinely a fun ride, and like watching the first two Transformers movies, you're like, okay, the human characters are pointless. They're really there to cause chaos in the robots' fight. Like, the Transformers don't need the humans, and the humans are really just hampering the effectiveness of the Transformers in those Michael Bay movies. And then you watch this one, and this one I really enjoy what they did with the human characters, and that is they made them feel useful. Like, the humans had actual like valuable skills needed to progress through the story, unlike in the other ones where they were like, oh yeah, no, the Transformers could have done that easily. But they need to have human characters tagged along for no real reason other than, ooh, human. But this one handles the human characters actually surprisingly well, especially when in the first 15 minutes of the movie, I wasn't really vibing with them. But then in the end, I'm like, okay, they actually handled the human characters really well. And so the story is pretty simple. Unicron wants to consume planets, so he sends lackeys to go find this gateway key that allows him to travel through space and time. And it's hidden on Earth, obviously, because for some reason everything's hidden on Earth. It is a plot, and it is pretty well told, actually, surprisingly enough. And I just have to say, it was enjoyable for what it was. It was way more engaging than I was expecting it to be, which is quite a shocker, especially having seen the other ones. That's a hand grenade score right there, because the story made use of its actual human characters, unlike the previous ones, which they were just like side pieces. But this one, like, they felt important, and the other ones are like, yeah, we could have written in a stick to do that, and the stick would have had just as much impact on fighting Transformers than the humans. Next, cinematics. That was solid. This was very visually stunning. I saw it in 3D. That was epic. There is one qualm, and they talk about this like one-shot action sequence where they, like, you know how they have that one camera that follows through all the action. I was expecting it to be longer and a little, I was expecting it to either be a little longer so it could focus on all the characters, which it didn't focus on all the characters who were in the fight, and I didn't really like that. It kind of disappointed, especially since they showed it in the trailers. So if they hadn't shown that in the trailers and I saw that for the first time in theaters, I'm like, ooh, that's pretty damn cool. But they showed the whole sequence in the trailers, and I'm like, oh, I thought it was going to be longer since you showed it in the trailer. But cinematically, it was epic. The music, the soundtrack, also really good. Hand grenade score there. The acting. I always say acting before directing, but fuck it, let's do acting this time first. The acting was pretty solid. I really liked Anthony Ramos in his role. I liked the voices. Peter Cullen, again, amazing voice of Optimus Prime there. A lot of big voices. I recognized Michelle Yeoh's immediately as well. Pete Davidson was also like an immediate recognition. It was really funny. But the one that really made me laugh is when later on in the movie, they meet a character called Wheeljack, I believe. He is like the Volkswagen van And it was so funny because that man starts talking, and I'm like, football is life. Danny Rojas? And it was just really funny because like I was watching Ted Lasso before I went to go see this movie, and then I just start hearing this man, and I go, football is life. And it was so funny. And I'm like, I think that's Cristo Fernandez voicing this Transformer here. And I just started laughing so hard in my mind, going like, I can't believe it. Football is life in Transformers. That's hype. And I just loved it. And Bumblebee there, as always. I really liked what they did with the Bumblebee character this time. And he was quoting movies. And I'm like, damn, that's funny. But the voice acting and the acting was just pretty solid, so I'll give it a hand grenade score. The directing was pretty good. I enjoyed the action sequences. It didn't feel too rushed. And I just gotta say this. I am shocked that I thought all the Transformers movies were around 2 hours in length. So to find out that this one was the second shortest Transformers movie, just like slightly longer than Bumblebee, I'm genuinely shocked because I thought all of the Transformers movies were at 2-hour runtimes and the longest one was 220. And then just recently I found out that the longest Transformer movie is 2 hours and 45 minutes with an average of 2 hours and 30-minute movies. And I'm like, holy shit, how? Like, this movie it told everything it needed to tell really easily and well. The other one still had like 20 more minutes added on to them somehow. And I just, honestly, good directing from the man. I'll give it a hand grenade score. Expectations and experience. I was expecting fun action, and I got fun action, even though it was better fun action than I was expecting. Again, I wasn't expecting the human characters to get a lot to do, so I was very happy when they felt useful to the plot. And I was like sort of going on, like at the beginning, I'm like, oh, these guys again, great. This is going to be fun. Like, these characters are so lame. But they handled them pretty well, and all the robots are great. All the Transformers are great. The villains are threatening. My favorite part is how the Transformers movies are kind of like, they perform Mortal Kombat fatalities like all the time. Like, whenever the Transformers are fighting each other, whenever they're delivering that finishing blow, it's always like a fatality. It's insane. It's kind of crazy. It's really funny. And I'm gonna say this one little spoiler. Give a little pause so you can skip real quick. I loved that ending tease because it literally played out in the joke. I made a bunch of jokes when I was watching the first two Transformers. I was like, I said this earlier in the vid too. I'm like, yeah, it'd be really cool to see the Transformers movies cross over with like G.I. Joe or something, or the Fast and Furious, because then like, okay, wacky action with wacky action is great. And then they end this movie in the only way that, now looking back on the other ones, why didn't they just do this since the beginning? Because it makes perfect sense. It would make so much more sense for the G.I. Joes to be the main like government agency that helps the Transformers fight bad guys. And then when that ending scene happens and Anthony Ramos' character just looks at the little card that he got from that secret agent and it says G.I. Joe, I was legitimately going, I was going crazy, man. I loved that because I want to see that. I want to see the G.I. Joes and the Transformers. I want to see Megatron team up with what's his face? Commander Cobra Kai, not Cobra Kai. But it would be so cool to see the Joes and the Autobots just team up. It's so, oh my gosh. The toy potential, honestly. It's literally getting out that action figure collection and just having at it. It's so good. So good. So, other than that, that's a solid hand grenade score here. I'm gonna say this is a solid hand grenade movie. This movie is very explosive, very cool, and it just makes me think that they should try to work with these like a little more, like crossover with G.I. Joe, try to cross over with Fast and Furious. I don't know if that one's possible, especially since the franchise is ending. But what I would love to see is more like unique takes using Transformers. Like they could make a pretty good horror movie with the Transformers characters. But yeah, I feel like I've been rambling on for too long, so I'm gonna try to end it here. If you liked, leave a like. Comment down below if you checked out the Transformers movies. And subscribe if you enjoyed. Other than that, I'll leave you guys to it.